Hey everybody, it's Amy Fountain here with For the Love of Autism, again with another Insights with Amber Black. And in our last video, if you haven't watched it, I'll go ahead and put the link down below in the description of the video, and you'll be able to go and see a little bit more about who Amber is. But today what we're going to talk about is the symptomology of diagnosis. Again, of course, our specific subject that we're going to talk about is autism and the gift that it offers for the higher awareness and growing consciousness of humanity. But I want to start about discussing kind of what creates these symptoms and what's behind them besides maybe the traditional medical ways that we deal with these sort of things. Especially, via medication. A lot of times that's the answer to even fixing a headache. Any kind of pain that we have in our body is we take a pill. And that's kind of where we are as a collective in humanity, is we are used to going to our doctor and our doctor telling us what's going on with our body. But something that is very profound about being a more evolved human, which is where we're all going at our own pace in our own ways, is to recognizing that we have the ability to know our body and connect with those messages that our body is giving us, for example, as in pain or any of these symptoms. And what I have found is a lot of the symptoms that people with autism present with are reactions to toxicity, whether it's physical, whether it's energetic. It could be, when I say energetic, it could be a thought, it could be emotions. It has to do with the environment and that's created by the individuals and the energy around that person. And so Amber's going to start off by sharing with us a little bit. I was, when we got on the computer today and we started to see each other, I noticed how luminous she is. She's just radiating today in a way that I hadn't quite seen before. I mean, I've seen the light on her skin and seen how she looks, but there's something different about her today. So Amber, if you could talk about that a little bit, of what you were explaining to me, why you appear the way you do. And I also want to hear from you guys, the audience. I want to hear in the comments, did you guys notice it? Because I'm playing with a little bit idea about perceptive reality. How we perceive is based on our belief systems and our programming, the way we've grown up. And so I'm really curious to see where we each vibrate at and if that actually has an effect on the way that we see others. So, Amber, if you could just touch on a little bit as to kind of where you are today so that we can find out a little more about your luminosity and see kind of what got you there, because it wasn't always this wonderful, joyful experience, right?
Correct.
So, go ahead and let us know about that.
So it's a very interesting journey, and it's a wonderful question, and I would like to start with intending for anyone who does have further questions after the video to submit questions to Amy for further discussion on anything that is mentioned. So please do so. We do welcome that. I'm happy to bring forth any additional information that you're seeking. The energy that Amy's referring to as it pertains to my third dimensional reality here as we move forth through planetary shifts and evolution at this time is more a reflection of staying in harmony with the ascension process and how the frequencies of existence as a collective are continuing to shift and expand up and maintain, anchoring that frequency, holding it in a space for the global benefit of helping humanity shine and raise within their own state is what she's really seeing. What the reflection in the luminous projection of the shine that she mentioned seeing in my face and just a brightness is the frequency that I anchor in my physicality. The energy is a soul frequency. Now, what I do from an energetic standpoint in our physical plane is harness that energy in such a way to where my cells begin to shift and expand and oscillate faster to expand and hold a higher frequency, and therefore exude that energy in such a way I can share it with you. That is what she is seeing in our physical presentation.
Well, that's incredible. I mean, it was, and I even had you like close the window, so that is not necessarily this reflection of light that you're seeing coming from the outside. You're seeing something that's illuminating from the inside. And
yes, and we even turned the overhead light off just because what was really happening was more of a reflective response to where the lights were reflecting off of me to where she almost couldn't see me and I was washed out based on the frequency and nature of having too much light, if you will, from all directions, and we needed the contrast, so I wasn't washing out.
Yeah, that is so cool. If you don't mind holding on for just 2 seconds, I've got a timer going off. I'm going to go stop that, and I'll be back in just 1 sec. Okay, apologies for that, guys. Lunch was ready. Okay, so if we could go straight from back to what I was discussing about this symptomology. You know, these symptoms are often the boxes that are checked on the form, on the chart, that the evaluator is using to therefore say, yes, you have autism. You know, you get so many boxes checked, and that's what that means. If you could touch on some of the symptoms that you had, and maybe any common symptoms of autism that happens in the physical body to cause that dis-ease that occurs. Mm-hmm. So describe the symptoms, and then we'll go into a little bit more after that about kind of what you did to get to the point where you're at.
Okay, I had a number of different things go on with me. I think the most common things that we hear about that people can really readily identify with are things like digestive concerns, cognitive concerns, concerns with seizures, and different levels of what that manifestation presents itself in and what those triggers are. It was also intolerance to different types of foods. There was a period of about a year to where I wasn't able to eat because my body wasn't tolerating nutrition on any level. And that goes into the vibrational characteristics of, you know, what the energetics behind nutrition is, and finding that proper balance and alignment for the frequency and nature of that person and what's going to work for them harmoniously. So the other things were more about being able to comprehend what was going on from my vantage point and my reality, and a neurotypical's perception on really relating and being fully present in my world. I wasn't completely anchored in my world. So a lot of what people would identify with as just kind of being out to lunch is what was going on for me, but it would fluctuate based on my ability to really anchor my frequency in such a way as a multidimensional being to where I could be more cognitive in my present conscious perspective as opposed to another dimensional perspective. And there's 4 of those going on for me, equal and simultaneous to this 5th one here on our planet. It's a kind of complicated answer. So basically, on some level, the typical things that you hear about regarding symptomology with autism boiled down to I had a degree of each and every one, but some were more severe than others as it related to me and how I had come into that place.
Okay, great. So what I hear you saying, I'll kind of bring this down into what I've seen. So for example, you talk about digestive issues and cognitive issues, which, you know, the gut, the state of the gut, which is where our immune system is, and I believe there's been studies now that have shown that it has just as many, it's like the second brain, they call it the second brain, so it's got the neurology going on in it. I mean, think about it, guys. When we think about neurology, a lot of times we think the brain, but ultimately that system runs through our entire body, and there are certain points at which play huge roles in that dynamic of how it works energetically, because it's an electromagnetic kind of highway, perhaps, you know. I think it's probably tied to the meridian system too in some way. I mean, ultimately, it's all connected, and that's a piece that I have found Western medicine really misses, and a lot of doctors will even say that too, because they go to school and they're taught, not only funded by pharmaceutical companies, the American Medical Association, so they are taught through that methodology of medicating, and they're also compartmentalized the way that they teach, that the way that they learn. So if something's going on in say the kidneys, you're going to go to a kidney specialist, and then when they discover that something's going on with your heart, instead of the kidney person knowing how that might be connected to the heart, you go to a heart specialist. And so there's a lot of disconnection that's going on there, and what I think that a big message that autism is here to show is that things are connected, and how is that connected? So sometimes it comes in a vehicle that doesn't look so good and is not comfortable. And so when we talk about the cognitive, what that looks like is, for example, you've got gut dysbiosis or leaky gut, or something is going on within the digestive system. And the digestive system is a very important piece to detoxification. So we are exposed to toxins all over the place, no matter who we are. And those of us who have more sensitive systems, like a lot of these high vibrational children, or anyone with autism, diagnosis of autism, ADHD, any of those things that are considered special needs, tend to have a difficulty, let's call it, or a challenge in processing those toxins. For example, my younger son is prone to febrile seizures. I noticed that he detoxes through his skin more than he does through his elimination system. So I've had to implement some things that support that, so that he can have a more balanced system and able to remove the impurities that he's exposed to. Now, that also includes what I put into his body. So I have to be very careful about what I feed him. You know, any kind of anything that I give him. I can't even give him anti-fever medications, because what I found out in that process, he was having his febrile seizures, and the doctors wanted me to just keep the fever down by giving him this anti-fever medications. Well, what was happening was it was depleting his glutathione. And Amber, I'd love for you to discuss a little bit about the glutathione, because we've had conversations about that, and you found a biomedical pharmacy, so we can get into a little bit of the biomedicals, because they're created differently than the traditional pharmaceuticals. The different intention. You know, the pharmaceuticals today that kind of run our world is really starting to be revealed, and seeing the truth of what is their intention. Well, their intention is to make money. It's really not about, you know, healing and balancing the body. So if you could talk a little bit about what glutathione is. For example, it's one of the antioxidants in our body, that our body is an amazing vehicle that is able to do so much self-healing if it's given the right tools and the right environment and the right intention. So touch on what glutathione is, and then also just talk a little bit about this kind of detoxification, and then you can share a little bit about us with the biomedicals that you found.
Okay, well, biomedicals, first of all, is going to be a really important tool for people to discover for their own healing, from the standpoint of having a remedy that's going to be more pure and natural in state, as opposed to taking a root that's going to be synthetic in state of healing in terms of what they put in their body. The vibrational characteristics of a biomedical treatment are going to be more pure form, if not completely pure form, which raises the vibrational frequency of that compound, in turn providing much more efficacy in the treatment, but it's also going to be in more alignment with a high vibrational individual if that is what's needed, and also to help heal what somebody is needed without adding any additional other toxins or synthetic material into the body itself. For me, more specifically speaking in terms of glutathione, glutathione came into my path in about 2011, and I do work closely with compounding pharmacy that is near to where I live. It's Campbell's Compounding Pharmacy, and they dispense to many autistic and natured needs all over the United States. Glutathione was an antioxidant that I profoundly needed on levels due to many things that had gone on in my life to where I wasn't producing it on my own. Glutathione is a self-manufacturing antioxidant within the body. You can take it in addition to that based on need to provide additional immune system support functioning by fighting free radical defense. And you can fortify that free radical defense with this antioxidant. It's the powerhouse of all antioxidants. And there's a very delicate way that it's needed in terms of being able to absorb it from a biomedical standpoint. Knowing the vehicle and mechanism of action that is needed to put it together to where it works efficiently with the mitochondria of the cell for utilization as well, and not destroyed through the digestive system. If it's taken through an oral vehicle, it needs to be bound with a liposomal encapsulation so that the digestive system doesn't destroy it and it is absorbed if it's not administered through IV or intramuscularly. The glutathione, what it did for me was boost my immune system. One thing that is very important about the immune system in autism is the energetic value of the autistic person runs at a very, very high frequency. I'm not referring to the physical frequency. I'm referring to the innate vibration from a soul perspective of the person. And what happens with that frequency when they are more fully coming into anchoring that frequency in their cellular existence, it overrides the immune system. It burns it out. It runs it too hard to where what you're really seeing manifesting in autism physically is the immune system collapsing because it cannot keep up, because the energy frequency of the innate nature of the being is overriding its capacity to do so. So as we incur other toxins, whether it's through medicines, foods, things we breathe in the air, environmental factors, frequencies that do not operate from a space of kindness, love, caring, and compassion, all of those things impact the autistic from the mental, emotional, spiritual body structure as a whole, to where the immune system becomes weakened and it needs pure form support in order to re-strengthen it so that the body can more fully become present and anchored and complete in a harmonious alignment both spiritually and physically. Glutathione is a very, very profound antioxidant that delivers that support. For me, specific to my journey, applying ATP was very, very necessary in order for me to be able to synthesize glutathione, which energized the mitochondria of the cell. You'll find some autistic individuals, they're present, but they don't engage much. I typically am one of those types of individuals because my energy system is running me at such a high frequency. Physically, I'm more quiet and reserved, and it's how I balance the energy. I needed the ATP to help energize the mitochondria of the cell because it had been run too far too long into my 30s through the duration of my life, collectively with the glutathione to give me that jump start and the immune support. So they worked together, and that was the vehicle that I used and I continue to use today, depending on what my environment exposes me to, depending on how I'm feeling, depending on if somehow there's been something that's come in and I feel like I need to be able to keep up with what is going on in my world. So glutathione has become something that is very much a part of sustaining me today, as my body doesn't provide the adequate levels of self-manufacturing the antioxidant to keep me in a space of a stronger immune system function.
Wow, so what I'm hearing you say is that glutathione is naturally occurring in the body, but in your body in particular, it doesn't come. It's not something about that autistic mismatch, perhaps, that's happening with the energy and the actual physical vehicle. Because I have heard that. I haven't personally. I've only had the experience with glutathione with my son, but from what you're saying and what I understand is that that's kind of sometimes perhaps a predisposition of someone with autism. That's like a common symptom that you would find is that their body has a difficult time manufacturing that on their own.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And once you're exposed to something that has weakened the body's ability to manufacture it on the level that it needs to or has been, it needs to be refortified. There has to be a mechanism of action to help the body do for itself what it is not doing for itself. And so through biomedicals, glutathione was one of those compounds that really helped me come back into a higher quality of living for myself and ability to do things, like anybody else would like to do something in their life physically.
Right, which could just look like everyday functioning, going out and having the energy to run around the park or something like that, whatever it might be. Yeah, I can see how
And
that.
it opens up the pathways neurologically. It aids tremendously in detoxing the brain. When we're exposed to toxins, toxins build up not just in the body, but if you think about the neural pathways of the brain, inflammation begins to form in the nerves of the brain. And when you have inflammation in the brain, things start to malfunction, things start to go wrong, and you have to alleviate that inflammation. And so inflammation comes from toxins. It comes from oxidative stress. So when you don't have oxygenated cells within the body, they need to become oxygenated. The combination of NAC with glutathione is going to provide that availability for recovery or to reduce any types of symptomology relating to any type of inflammation in the body. Because when the body's working to reduce that, it's not working on other things that are going in the body. So the immune system all of a sudden is fighting all of these different types of conditions. And when the brain isn't giving it the right signals, it's fighting things that aren't there, it's fighting things that are there, and it's completely overriding and running itself into a place of complete fatigue. So alleviating that inflammation from the perspective of the brain and the nerve endings in the brain is very important as well. And glutathione does absolutely play a key role in doing such.
Wow, so that's God, that's a lot of really good information. What I'm hearing a lot at this moment from what you were talking about was the inflammation, and I know that we had that conversation where you had explained that has a lot to do with what's happening with seizures. There's inflammation. So the way I understand inflammation is the body is doing its natural mechanism, what it knows to do, and it's attacking something that's in the body that needs to go. So therefore, it's kind of like with a fever. You become hot, you're inflamed. And what that is doing is the little soldiers that are in our body. That's kind of how I see like the white blood cells.
They are.
You're the glutathione. I saw them with these. I saw it as these like little dudes with these metal hats for some reason. But going in and doing their job to clear out whatever is causing dysfunction or dis-ease in the body. It's not becoming a disease without that hyphen between the dis and the ease until it's undealt with. So we have an opportunity. We have these signals that are letting us know something is out of balance and we need support. And so, for example, something like earthing, which, if for those of you that don't know about it, there's a website, I believe it's earthing.com, that's earthing.com, and their explanation for inflammation that goes on in anybody is that we have this disconnection from the earth. And so earthing is actually a free therapy that anybody can utilize by putting their bare feet or their skin somewhere on the earth. Normally we have like rubber shoes or things that are preventing our connection with that earth, and what's available to us through the earth are these free electrons that come up into our body, and they assist in that process of inflammation, eliminating that inflammation, just supporting it further. And the other piece that you were explaining was that inflammation in the brain is what causes seizures. So can you actually share with us a little bit about your experience with seizures personally, and maybe anything else that you could
Yeah, sure.
share?
So my experience with seizures, as we've even mentioned, there's a lot of ways that you can help reduce the things that come along with seizures, and when you're going to go through having a seizure, how to manage that. For me, I used to jump in ice baths when they would occur, just because I would be so hot through the energy system of the energy my body was trying to facilitate. For me, what had happened was my system had become so weakened neurologically from my environment and things that had happened in my life that I just literally malfunctioned. It was just a complete malfunction. That's what a seizure is. It's a disconnect, malfunction mechanism of something that is not wired correctly, and it's neurological. So alleviating the energetic frequency was something that I knew I needed to do because the heat was making it harder for me to manage. It was making it worse. And so literally jumping into an ice bath to cool myself down sometimes didn't even help. And I was talking about ice, a full-blown tub of ice. As I continued to keep myself in environments that I started to identify with in terms of managing a seizure. And my seizures, I do have petite seizures still today that I manage, but the more aggressive seizures that I would have, which hasn't been in a number of years because I know how to manage my life and I've strengthened myself in such a way they don't occur anymore, was through writing it out, being present in that moment, knowing what I was going through, and keeping myself in a very safe space until I knew that the trigger had passed. That really didn't start occurring for me until my 30s. The more petite seizures in nature of what different levels of different types of seizures can be was more of what I dealt with in my earlier years and still today. And sometimes they last for a minute, maybe they last for 5 seconds, but that's more what a petite seizure is going to be. And it's more the case of being here, being present, having a gap, and pulling myself right back into having a conversation with you. I do know what's going on, but there's a slight delay just for a moment. And those typically don't go on longer than a minute, maybe 2 max. I manage all of that through my exercise, my nutrition, my environments, and my biomedicals. All of those things are how I have improved, not going into that space, and I don't, anymore to this day in terms of managing what that is. And it took me quite some time to figure out, okay, that's a trigger for me, and I need to stay away from what is a trigger for me, because now that I have that trigger, I know I'm aware of that. That's real and true for me, and so I'm very conscious of making sure I avoid anything I know is not going to be healthy for me in my reality. And it's not going to be in congruency of my energy system, knowing that not having in an alignment could be a potential trigger for me. So I don't even set myself up to be in an environment, a situation, or around something that is going to be potentially circumstantial from that regard, knowing that it can go into the level of potentially being a seizure effect.
Yeah, I understand that completely. And we're going to have a whole other discussion on seizures, because there's a lot of depth to this subject, and there's a lot of variations of seizures and seeming causality of it. You know, I know that with my journey with it so far with my son, is they're febrile meaning fever. So, you know, I can totally understand what you're saying when you're talking about the heat aspect of it. And I've come a long way. You know, each seizure that my son has had, which he's probably had about 7 or 8 now at this point. He's 2.5 and started having them at about 1. And doesn't have them every single time he has a fever. And I've learned a tremendous amount, and I continue to dive into it and lose that fear. You know, my fear around him having it, which, gosh, what a major catalyst that is in itself, to really kind of cause you to go out and be like, you know, what can I do here to help this situation? And I know just sitting in the fear doesn't do it. Facing the fear is a whole nother aspect of it. But we'll touch a lot on that when we discuss seizures further. But the thing I really want to shine a light on here for anybody who's watching is that fear piece and how it's triggered through these symptoms. So, for example, I took a course with a lovely woman. Her name is Jackie McMillan, and she has a website. And again, everybody, I'm gonna put links to all of these sites and stuff that we've mentioned that'll be relevant to this conversation in the description below, so you can look down that if any of it resonates with you and you want to look into it further. So Jackie's thing is Thrive with Autism, and she, through her own experience with autism and experiencing a moment of detoxification where she had a less toxic environment exposed to her, and she found that a lot of her symptoms were gone that she was experiencing, and I don't even think she was even diagnosed at that point. But the reality was it caused her to go on this mission of discovering what it was that was different, that was actually helping support her from feeling pain and discomfort and just being at disease. And so what I learned from that course, and a lot of what she has to share, is kind of how toxic our world is. And I already sort of knew that because I was on that journey and discovering about foods and, you know, all of the things that go on, that we have some of it we have a lot of ability to choose whether or not we engage with those toxins by simply not buying the foods that we know are toxic or have GMO, you know, simple examples like that. But it's very important as parents, especially, for us to recognize what's going on with our children and to ask that question, the very important question that we leave open-ended. This is an important piece, because we cannot allow our intuition to answer. We cannot allow the universe to bring us the answers, or God, or whoever it is that we entrust our faith in, that is this power that makes things happen. We cannot trust that unless we leave this question open. And that question is how can I support you? How can I support my child? You know, what can I do to assist in this process? Because it's all about really tapping into that intuition. Amber was talking about that innate energy, and the way I would describe that is that's our energy essence, the essence of who we truly are, the life force, the consciousness, the soul that is living in this physical body. and doing this dance of, you know, human life and playing this game together. And there is a place, as you can see, where we can reach relief. We can reach a place of knowing on how to manage, and it's very unique to the individual and the individual situation. And what's beautiful about the parent-child dance, what I like to call it, is that it's got this amazing dynamic where we can intuitively, you know, we call it mother's intuition, but it doesn't just stop at moms, you know, it's men have it too, where we just innately know what our child might need, or we just feel like something resonates, we're interested in it, and then we go and dive into that subject matter to learn more about it, and it touches our lives in ways that we never knew was possible. And it's important that we recognize that our mind and the reality as we know it, this 3D dimensional reality that we all feel entrapped in, is very limiting in what it knows, and it doesn't understand kind of the vastness that we all are. And so if we can allow that dimension, that consciousness of that dimension to start to fall away, because it is, and not argue with it, and be open to what's possible, and not have to know where we're going, except to have that intention that, okay, I want to support and I want to help with healing. What can I do to offer this body for healing? And that's how I've gotten a lot of answers on what's unique to my son and our journey as to how to handle whatever is going on at any given moment. And it eventually leads you on a really exciting path and meeting amazing people that have the solutions and the support. And I want to reiterate, too, that Amber is available. You can reach her on her website, officialamberblack.com. Again, that'll be in the description below. And she's wanting to, you know, offer whatever wisdom can come through to her to help you on an individual basis and to kind of get you moving in the direction you need to go. There's just a couple more things I want to touch on before we go today, because, again, I don't want to take everybody's time. But in regards to, you know, I want to hear your perspective on this fear piece, because I think a lot of times, you know, fear can really debilitate us and make it really difficult for us to move forward. But, you know, did you experience fear? Did you face that fear? And perhaps what was on the other side of that? Because I know for me, anytime that I look at it as like a big, deep pit. And you're digging, you hit rock bottom, and if you could just break through that bottom, that's where all the light becomes revealed. It was almost like it was this shrouded illusion that's covering up our light and what's really, truly there. So touch on that, because I know that, I'll just say this, that toxicity and looking at our toxic world can feel absolutely overwhelming, because we have really gone very far in this piece. But we can, with an awareness, and with that courage to face the fear that we have around it, and to not be overwhelmed and say, okay, I'm going to take this piece by piece, and I'm going to do what intuitively I feel is best for me or my child or whoever it else is that you're supporting. So talk to us a little bit about fear and anything that you can share about that.
So fear for me was something that got real simple in terms of peeling it back piece by piece through the journey of my healing process and overcoming the fear that I knew I was very different, and stepping into a space that was of allowance to really fully look at what that was, with regards that I didn't have really any other choice. Without looking at that fear, I wasn't going to have answers. Without looking at the reality of what was showing up for me, I wasn't going to have answers. And so I faced each piece of it one step at a time. What I did, though, was I set very clear boundaries for myself within my reality of not allowing anything to hinder being able to move through that. Anything that would be of hindrance of me being able to overcome what I knew I had to overcome, I eliminated from my life, whether it was something in my environment that was unhealthy, whether it was a person in my life that was unhealthy for me, and anything that was not healthy, supportive, loving, and acknowledging, it didn't exist. And I continued to put momentum behind that energy. And when I did, answers started to show up. Fear started to fade away. And I could move more steadily into a place that was steadfast and gaining momentum to peel back the layers with more ease and to be in more full alignment with overcoming the fear of the label that autism sort of on a subconscious level placed upon me. And when I overcame that, things just seemed to fall into place. And so really stepping into my place of courage was what that took in looking at all perspectives of why autism showed up for me, what that said about me, and embracing it in the uniqueness that it is for me, speaking about it, sharing about it, working through it, knowing it's a part of my daily life, and that I'm okay with that, that people that surround me are okay with that, and that we all grow from it, we all learn from it, and it's something to be celebrated. And anything that you celebrate is nothing to be feared. So I completely transformed the perceptions of what was creating fear into something that was positive and wonderful, and an aspect to be shared to embrace others that were going down similar journeys in their life that would be supportive of them.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. That just feels so good and actually liberating. So I'm just going to go off of that, and we can kind of wrap this conversation up for today. But I really want to support those of you out there that might be watching this and perhaps just received a diagnosis, or is not far from that, or knows somebody who has received that. And initially, it does really invoke this fear, and it's okay to have those feelings. I think that that's something, as a collective humanity, we were not really taught how to be emotionally intelligent. We were not taught to allow our feelings that we're having, that are caused by the energy movements, which are emotions, that have a lot of purpose. They have a message within them. Believe me, I am an empath myself. It took me years to really even admit to that, or even remember it. But I went through enough emotional experiences to realize that it's a gift, and how can we shift what we see, or initially perceive as a problem, or something that needs to be fixed, as actually a gift. And each and every one of you have that in you. And the whole piece about autism being a catalyst for humanity's spiritual awakening is very important here, because it doesn't necessarily mean something specific of what you understand that even spirituality is. I see it as awakening to the energy that we all are. I mean, energy is spirit. It's just this piece that is unseen that we have not really put a lot of credence in, as we know of in history. It's actually gotten kind of shunned in a lot of ways. But really, what wonderful things to really know this whole side of ourselves, to make ourselves whole and to understand that. And so if you're supporting somebody, or if you're going through an experience where your world is being rocked by autism or ADHD or any of these labels that we're given, know that there is a light at the end of that path, or even before the path. The path never ends. That path to ascension, to changing literally on a physical level, as Amber is presenting just in being who she is, and by honoring her process and allowing that light to infiltrate her body and literally change that. And we'll discuss that more on some other talks, because there's some really interesting information about that I'm really excited about, that's happening right now on a physical level, on a DNA level, And it just really, what it does is it allows for that vast consciousness that we each all are and have the ability to connect with and be in a physical body on this world. We don't have to leave our body. We don't have to astral project. We don't have to do these things that we've had to do in the past, because the energy, the frequency and vibration is here that's supporting us to do that here in the physical, and to experience having, you know, a body that we actually are in a beautiful dance with, instead of kind of criticizing or learning to love, or, you know, all of that. So it's a really cool journey. I think, you know, keep steadfast and keep asking those questions that are going to lead you to that piece of enlightenment that's actually waiting for you to discover. Amber, is there anything else you want to share on some of the things we've talked about before we go today? Is there anything else you want to close up? And
No, I don't think so. I think that's a good place to close it up today, and we can go into some more topics with another discussion and what that can look like.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here today, and thank you everybody for watching. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and please leave comments, questions, you know, anything that you want to add to this conversation. And again, we're open to, you know, what you want to hear about, because we've got a lot to talk about and we can come up with ideas, but we really want to help those of you out there that are watching us. And please share this. Share this with anybody that you think may benefit from it. And thank you for being with us today. Bye.